Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and we're here to keep your garden humming. Here's what we've got lined up for you this week.
If you're running out of room to grow more plants at your place, I'm going to show you how you can increase your growing space by taking it vertical.
I'm visiting what was once a weedy patch of gravel alongside a very busy Melbourne train line, and now it's been transformed into a picturesque garden, if you'll excuse the noise of the trains. Ooh.
I'm meeting a young couple who are bringing their love of colour into the garden.
We have the trifecta of a creative space, a love of colour and an abundance of food.
You can't ask for much more than that.
And hold on to your seahorses. I'm leaping into a miniature underwater world and meeting an aquascaper. It's all about gardening, architecture and pond life, all in a tank.
If you're anything like me, you take a sneaky peek at every front garden that you pass, because even the smallest of front gardens can be chockers with big ideas. I'm on Sydney's inner north side, where brand new high-rise rubs up against classic Aussie semi-detached suburbia. With a local twist, that is. This is Rungtiwa's potted garden. It's a vibrant riot of colours and textures, yet the composition has a calming order and formality that's totally zen. Look at this place. Oh, Rungtiwa.
Hello,
How
Costa.
are you?
Good, how are you?
Great to be here. Wow, look at your garden. It is spectacular.
Thank you so much.
Such a small space, yet you have crammed it full.
Yes,
There's so much to see, I don't know where to look. And is this all in pots, all in containers?
yeah, all in pot.
Seriously?
Yes.
Whoa, I just want to have a closer look.
You want to have a look? So
Yeah,
please come,
definitely.
welcome.
Thank you. Here we go. And Rungtiwa's potted paradise stretches all the way through to his side and back courtyards. Wow, look at this space. There's so much light coming in and you're just using every space, hanging vertical gardens. How long have you been building and growing this?
So it's been about 3 or 4 years.
That's all?
So yeah,
It feels just so nice and cool and there's so much colour, but it feels so big.
yeah. When you walk through, it's come look like a little oasis. Beautiful, lush and colourful.
Yeah, and much bigger. With his florist training, Rungtiwa has created a potted garden that gives the illusion of being permanent. How does he do it? I don't see a single plastic pot. So, you know, having a closer look here, a lot of the species that you've chosen actually cascade and cover the pot up.
Yeah, that's right, Costa. I put in the plant, everything is in the pot, and it looks like I plant in the soil in the garden.
Yeah, so, I mean, this here, it's like a garden bed.
Yeah.
And all the way along here, it just looks like a normal garden bed in the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
What sort of light is this space getting?
Yeah, so I will move all around in the winter and summer because they follow the sun.
So you literally shift your plants to the sunny part of the garden
Yes, true.
daily.
Yeah.
You're basically saying, I'm not going to be restricted to shade-loving plants. I'm going to have a full mix of species,
Yes, true.
but I just have to give them their dose of sun.
Yeah, some people have not much space and not much sun, so they can plant everything in the pot and they can move around too, and you get more flower all year around too. It's quite beautiful and interesting. Yeah.
So Rungtiwa gardens in pots to allow for maximum flexibility of conditions and to constantly paint new pictures with the plants. It would also be a great option if you were renting. How many pots are there then?
So I think it's easy to be around 200 pots. Yeah.
200 pots?
Yeah.
Rungtiwa has made a bit of an art form out of moving his pot plants to chase the sun or shade, and he's going to show me how he creates a picture-perfect yard. So where do you start? Like, what's the plan here? How do you go about it?
So the first thing we need to see where the sun come or shade part. So like a little like this.
Like the
This one
cyclamen?
yeah, they don't like too much sun.
No,
So
because they're a
it must
sort of
be,
indoor plant.
Yes, it must be in the shade like this, cover with the
Oh, look at that.
forest, and everyone can see the flower. So
You are an artist. What about that one?
So the big one like this, they love the sun.
Yep.
So this spot in here is full lush and color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a meadow.
Yeah. Very beautiful.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So,
And this one, the shade pan. So the one thing we can't put in the direct sun.
Yep.
So I put in the little corner in here. So we get the shade. And when you walk, you can see all the green and the very lovely texture, color, and beautiful.
it just fits in.
Yeah.
And peeking behind the scenes, you can see the way Rungtiwa is creating the height in his potted garden. Outstanding. So where do you get all your plants from?
So most of them I rescue from the neighborhoods.
Oh, so you're just collecting them
Yeah.
from people's castaways?
Yeah, and bring back home and get the new life. Yeah. And when the people walk past, sometimes they just drop in the plastic bag and put the letter for me and say, let's go in your garden. So it's really lovely.
So you're like the local plant emergency department. you bring them back to life.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Mm.
It's an affordable way to pack your place with plants and please the passers-by.
Hello.
Wow, what a beautiful garden. Hey?
What do you love about Rungtiwa's
Everything,
garden?
everything. You look at it, colorful, green. What else do you want? You
Yeah.
know, front garden, absolutely. You know, you walk past, everyone just stop by and just said, oh, wow, what a beautiful garden it is. You know, it makes you feel your heart.
A lovely front garden is like a gift to your neighbourhood. There's a lot of time and effort gone in here. What's inspired that? Where did it grow from?
It started from I study flower arranging. So that's why when you work with the flower, colorful. So I want, in my dream, I want to have in my garden full with the color.
It's a bit like a painting
Yes, that's
because
it.
you're just throwing colour all the time.
Yeah, it's like a little piece of art.
How does it make you feel as you create this art and it's changing all the time?
It's like you do what you love, you feel very relaxed, so calm.
So it's really like a practice of meditation.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Every day, if I not do anything in my garden, it's gonna be something wrong.
You'll feel,
Yeah.
you'll feel anxious.
Yeah, that's,
This is your art, it's your therapy,
yes, that's it.
and then of course it's your exercise as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot workout in my garden. I move all around, you move everything. Yeah, I spend more half my life in the garden now, so every day. So.
There's so many benefits and advantages to growing in pots. Of course, if you rent, that means you can take your best friends with you whenever you need. But what about if you've got a shady spot? Maybe you've got a concreted courtyard, or perhaps you're on a balcony. Either way, growing in pots is an opportunity for you to take inspiration from Rungtiwa's garden and bring more colour and interest to wherever you're growing. And for Rungtiwa, Billy the dog, and husband John, the best time to enjoy the garden is cocktail hour. John, how much do you contribute towards the gardening here?
Absolutely nothing.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely.
But what does it give you? What do you get back?
Oh, it gives back harmony, joy, happiness.
calm and happiness for me. Yeah.
Well, calm and happiness, I reckon I can drink to that.
I'm with you on that. Indeed. Cheers.
Cheers.
To the garden.
Yes.
Garden.
Not too shabby.
Not at all.
How do you stop your hose from kinking? Well, there are lots of really high-quality hoses on the market that claim to be kink-free, but any old hose can be improved by managing it in the right way. Now, the first thing is that I leave mine not circled around and tied it up in a little coil, but laid out in big straight strips. Now, that means it doesn't get into a habit of curling. The other thing is that hoses are essentially quite seasonal. In the warmer months, they're much more flexible. In the cooler months, much more rigid. And you'll find that they will behave in different ways in those different seasons. I use things like old forks to use as guides to pull the hose around the garden. But really, it doesn't matter what hose you hold. If you manage it well, you should have a kink-free environment.
Why is my wallamai growing two different looking cones? The wallamai is monoecious, which means that both male and female cones are born on the same tree. Male cones, often known as drupes, form in early summer, whereas female cones appear on the higher branches in late summer. And the females are what contain the scales, which contain the seed, or the nut. Now, the male pollen needs to reach the female cone to be fertilised, and this may take an entire year for the seed to mature, and many years to see the mature fruit on the tree. So if you have two different types of cone on your wallamai pine, then it's a special time for they're getting ready to seed the next generation.
How do I tell if my tree has dieback? Dieback is a response to a fungal pathogen that affects a number of native trees and some exotic species. Now, when we say dieback, we're normally referring to the disease Phytophthora cinnamomi, and its symptoms are a lot like root rot and include discoloured spots on leaves, yellowing leaves, and decline in tree crown and canopy. Unfortunately, there is no cure, only treatment. So the best thing to do is to try and avoid it spreading, particularly in our native forest areas, by following the appropriate hygiene guidelines.
Climbing plants are so useful in the garden. The way they cover vertical space means you can transform the tiniest footprint into a sea of green. But they need something to climb up, and Hannah's got a great tip to help send your plants skyward.
No matter how big your place is, there comes a time when every gardener is going to want more space. And making productive use of your vertical areas is one of the simplest and fastest ways to get it. So I'm going to get growing on some simple, durable, relocatable vertical arbours. I'm using steel reinforcement mesh, affectionately known as Rio. This endlessly useful material can be joined, bent and attached into all kinds of solutions. You can buy and cut full sheets or look out for scraps and leftovers at the salvage yard or the tip. You're also going to need some appropriate personal protective equipment. So for this job, I've got safety glasses, gloves and some earmuffs. I've selected the spot and it's around 3 metres wide to allow for the curve. To create the archway, you'll need a rock-solid base. In this case, star pickets. Drive them into the ground as carefully as you can, and you want them to be very stable, so you'll need to go as deep as your soil requires. In my heavy clay soils, I'm aiming for around ½ a metre. I'm using 4 star pickets, 1 for each corner of each arbour. Because I'm working with terraces, I put the upper star pickets on an angle. This will provide more tension to stabilise the structures. Today, I'm going to build 3. Okay, off we go. I've measured the width and length that I need, and I'm cutting them to size. I've chosen a 9mm bar for stability. The length depends on how high you want the arch. Allow at least 1.8 metres for yourself. But we're really tall, so I've allowed 2.4 metres. You might also find that you'll go through quite a few discs while you're grinding. Because they're so long, they're impossible to bend on my own. So for this task, I've enlisted the help of my mate, Gemma.
So what are we doing, Hannah?
Hey, mate.
Hey.
Well, today we're going to be bending this Rio. I couldn't do it without you. So I'm going to be up here, you're going to be down here, and technically, fingers crossed, it's going to be smooth and easy. We're securing the mesh to the star pickets using wire, around 40 centimetres long. Once one side is secured, you can carefully bend and secure the other end. This is definitely where you need the help of a friend. Right, if you lean back, and then I can tie it on.
Yep.
Thanks, Emma. All right, let's do the next one, hey? Good job, boy. Yeah.
It's in.
Nice. And an added bonus is that our new pup, Ollie, is loving the pot.
Ollie's
It's so beautiful.
good work, Ollie.
So nice. These arbours are so versatile and functional. They can support everything from grapes to heavy pumpkins, peas and beans, or climbing rows loaded with flowers. Now I'm ready to plant. That's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
It's like a wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to plant a combination of species. On my downhill side, I've got my existing seasonal grapes, while up here, I'm going to pop in a permanent display of foliage and flowers. I'm digging holes in the existing beds, around 20 centimetres wide and deep, along the base of each arbour.
All right, Pablina.
I've got 2 evergreen native climbers here, including the Macquarie and Wonga vines. I've chosen them because they're evergreen, meaning that year-round they'll have a permanent displays of leaves and or flowers, whereas the grapes on the downhill side will drop their leaves in winter, which feels a bit empty in the garden. But these beautiful natives will hold that space visually perfectly. Okay. And the final touch, some mulch and a good watering in. I'm stoked with the result. These arbours are so easy to make and can be covered in plants in no time. In only a matter of months, these ones are going to be bursting with foliage and food. But the use they make of the vertical space will last for years.
Everywhere you look in the city, there are little pockets of green that have so much potential. Jane's found a group of people that wanted to honour a friend's memory by turning a neglected patch into a thriving tiny park.
It's hard to believe that this pretty garden along a busy Melbourne railway line was once a weedy gravel patch. But here in the inner city suburb of Northcote, a group of dedicated volunteers are committed to looking after it.
Morning, Jane.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
This is just a lovely sight.
The lovely little pocket in Northcote, lovely apple tree in the middle.
It really makes it, doesn't it, that apple tree?
Yeah, it's just on the tail end of blossom. Now the canopy's coming out, and when it comes out, it's glorious. It's got a lovely shady canopy.
And all of the plants are very well chosen to be fairly drought tolerant.
They are. They had to survive. When they were planted, they got a bit of attention, but there's no water on site, so it's all hand-carted water. A few waters at the beginning and then just top them up a bit, but basically they have to survive on their own.
And it's all done by volunteers.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We've got a wonderful group of community-minded people who chip in. We've got a working bee every month, so they come along.
And a lot of the plants we've got have been donated. This Wigandia arrived a couple of months ago from a local neighbour.
I love the Wigandia because, well, it's got nice flowers, but also those amazing leaves.
They're like elephant leaves, aren't they?
Aren't they?
Like rough skin.
Yeah. It'll do well there. That's a different colour, though, the nasturtium. That's a beauty.
That's milkmaid.
It's lovely.
Yeah, that's a lovely one.
I love that. You don't often see the Jerusalem sage, do you?
No, it's so sculptural. It's, yeah, I love it how it's got that lovely little cap of flowers.
It's a very hardy, tough plant that should be grown more often.
Well, we hope so, yeah.
This part here that's really facing the dramatic sort of railway line with the trains and the ding-ding-dings, well, that's really good. It's like a hedge, isn't it? So that'll be bouncing some of
and
them.
that's a scented geranium, so people brush past that and you get a waft of lovely fragrance, which is really nice.
Yeah. So what is this place all about? It's gorgeous.
Well, this is a garden that started with a community group, and then Louise Tinney, who lived just down the road, she used to pass regularly, became involved in the group, and gradually over the years it evolved into what we see today, this beautiful perennial dry garden.
Really well thought out. Was that due to Louise?
Yes, this is all Louise's work. She was a plonker. She would just put things in spots and see if they worked or not. So there's lots of sort of vantage points around the garden where you can see different heights, different colours, different leaf structures to create interest year round.
So how did things get started, though?
Water carted in milk bottles. In shopping trolleys, just to keep things established.
Wow.
Little stick fences around new plants, just to sort of let people know that there was something there. So things have really survived remarkably well.
Passers-by would get roped in. Next time you come past, bring some water with you because these plants need watering. Don't let them go unwatered.
So tell me about Louise. She sounds like a wrangler. She got people involved.
That's exactly right. She connected with people straight away. Look at this, look what I've planted, look at this beautiful flower. Have you got time next week to come and help me pull out some kikuyu?
Oh, the kikuyu grass.
Yes, exactly.
Louise passed away in mid-2021, and these committed locals, including family members, are making sure her legacy lives on. Miranda, this is a garden for your mum. How do you feel about that?
It's a very special place that, you know, Molly and I are going to be able to come to all the time. And, you know, I'll be able to teach her about her grandmother and about the beautiful person she was and how passionate she was.
How do you think she would be feeling about all the people who love this garden?
Oh, she'd be incredibly touched. She'd be overwhelmed, I think. And for people to carry on that work that she started, she would just be so happy.
Another really important thing for Louise was that everyone deserves beautiful things around them, and this garden provides that.
I just wish she could see it like it is because she started it. And,
her spirit is
her
here,
spirit
though, isn't
is,
it?
and actually we say that, don't we? We feel her spirit's here. We do, and that's really nice.
While the garden started off with mainly perennials, the group have also started to incorporate some native plants. It's a nice open space for this little bit of Indigenous stuff.
I've just popped in a little Banksia, Pinus Banksia, with really kind of interesting leaves that resemble, obviously, a pine tree.
Yes.
And it's quite protected now in amongst that, in the kangaroo grass. Lucky to get a donation from the council with all these lovely grasses. So again, we've got poas and kangaroo grass.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, I love that spot. And I love how they just spread out like that, like huge sort of fans of
And
grasses.
that's bringing the native birds in, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so.
Oh, it's
and the
lovely.
little critters, hopefully, you know, they're sort of
it's
coming
nice
and
to have
hiding
a
in.
mix, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, this looks a tough old spot.
Oh, yes, this gets that baking hot sun in summer, and the soil quality is not that great.
And a bit of rosemary over here.
A bit of rosemary that likes it. So,
and the Dianellas.
Yes, and then the goodenias. You've picked really good, tough plants. And what about the pig face, though, the Carporotus?
Yeah, I love it when it comes into flower. It
yes.
It makes you really happy looking at that. It's so cheerful.
No, things are doing well. I think you need to be congratulated. I think it's wonderful.
Do you know what that one is, Jane?
Yes, it's called wire creeper, because it looks like wire, doesn't it? And it's a Muhlenbeckia.
Oh, okay.
It's a New Zealand plant. It's I like it.
Yeah, no,
it's
we
good.
love
That'll
it because it covers up all that.
Yes.
The graffiti, if we get it. Yeah, no, it's great. Really nice.
It's good.
Yeah.
In 2019, the garden became part of the Stationeers program, a Keep Australia Beautiful Victoria initiative encouraging local volunteers to become custodians of an area, transforming these areas through working bees into parks, gardens or tracts of native bushland.
So Big Track owned the land, and so Louise, being determined as she was, joined up with the Stationeers program, even though there's no station here.
Yeah, this is in between the two stations.
Yes,
yes.
But she saw the potential to get financial backing, to get new soil.
So what jobs do you actually do here?
Well, there's always lots of pruning, and Louise was, I used to call it wallaby pruning, so nibbling like a wallaby to keep things in shape all year round. So she was always doing that, and the sort of chop and drop method. Chop the tips off and let them fall, push them under the bush so it's more mulch for the garden that will slowly rot down. So there's often a lot of pruning, and we've got a mulcher because we try and process as much as we can on site. So yes, it's pretty constant, and we always make room for cake.
That's the best bit. Jane's cakes are worth coming to the working bee for.
Marcia, okay. Are you going to have a sit with us? Oh, not the dog. Well, maybe whose dog is it?
Well, I suppose it's Louise's legacy, and it represents what a passionate gardener she was.
Now, you're part of the family.
Yeah, I'm her younger sister. Well, I suppose for us as family, you know, it's something that keeps Louise with us.
There's cups here, that's all right. What would you like?
Black tea.
Black tea.
There is no denying Jerry is a resourceful guy. This time he's sharing his garden remedy with ingredients you probably already have in the kitchen.
After 15 years honing my garden here in suburban Brisbane, I feel it's almost working like a well-oiled machine. I have climate-appropriate plants, I practice crop rotation, and I include plant species that attract all the beneficial insects. But like every gardener, I have the occasional pest or disease problem to deal with. Instead of dashing off down to the nursery, I've got some organic remedies which I can make at home. A common problem in my garden is a fungal disease, powdery mildew. Now, this affects a wide range of plants, edibles and ornamentals. It'll attack roses, begonias, and particularly grapes and members of the cucumber family, things like squash and zucchini and pumpkin. In this instance, my solution is milk, and this has proven to be very effective against powdery mildew. I first experimented with it when I was living in Sydney, and I found it to be very useful at controlling powdery mildew on begonias. This goldenrod is susceptible to powdery mildew, especially if the leaves are wet at night, which is why it's always advisable to water in the morning. So I'm going to treat it. It's important to prune off and bin the worst affected foliage first, as the milk fungicide won't repair any damage already done. I mix 1 part milk to 5 parts water and apply it over the foliage. I've got 5 litres of water here, so I'm adding 1 litre of milk. It's important to keep to this ratio because if you make it any stronger, you may encourage different types of fungi to grow on your plants. Now, as with all organic remedies, timing is absolutely critical. Apply in the cool of the morning, thoroughly saturating the leaves to the point of runoff. The runoff is also a benefit to soil organisms, as the protein and nutrients in the milk is gobbled up like any other organic matter. So there you go. Simple household ingredients to fight common garden problems and come out the winner.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, we've got a couple who get creative in their garden. Millie introduces us to some eminent evergreens, and we find a whole new plant world underwater. If you were setting up a garden for the first time, what would you want in there? Some fruit trees, a couple of wicking beds, a worm farm or two, and most definitely some colour. Well, Sophie's meeting a young couple who are a great example of what can be achieved in just 2 years.
First impressions can give you a real sense of people's passion in life. Today, I'm meeting a young couple and the first impression is colour. Hannah Cordingley and Branko Lipovac have spent the last few years working on their home renovation on the outskirts of Adelaide CBD. The house is filled with vibrant colour, reflecting Hannah's love of interior design, and that colour is carried through to the garden.
I feel like it's always been in our blood. Hannah's dad is a landscape designer, and yeah, I guess with my ethnic parents, we've always had some sort of veggies or something in the garden, always out and about. We just pretty much maintained what was here from the outside and sort of really thought about what do we want our backyard to really do. So in that sort of sense, we focused on our kitchen and sunroom area because it all ties in together.
Yeah, I love waking up in the morning and the first thing I look at is the sunroom with the flowers on the coffee table and then the garden beyond that. So it really makes me happy.
So what was here when you came here?
There were a few established fruit trees already here.
We set on the feijoa staying and the lemon tree and the plum tree. And then from there we decided to put a grass lawn in the middle and then sort of spread out with plants and beds.
What have you got here now?
We've got a locust tree, a pomegranate, and nectarine and apricot. I wanted to plant a lot of flowers for the pollinators to come and help with the veggies and to cut the flowers for use inside. And also it helps a bit of like living mulch under the fruit trees, I find.
And have you noticed lots of pollinators and beneficial bugs come in?
Yeah, heaps. There's always bees around. There's plenty of just little insects crawling around. Yeah, it's from when it started to what it is today, it was, yeah, chalk and cheese.
Now, this is certainly not something you regularly see, mushrooms growing outside in Adelaide.
Yeah, look, I've tried to go the unconventional route and go away from the indoors controlled humidity and to grow mushrooms outside with whatever we have. These are called King Strapharias, which are known as the wine cap mushrooms, and they are also known as the garden giants, so they can go as big as that. I've also got some wood bluets growing in another bed. I've got some shiitakes on logs, and I also grow oysters in PVC tubing. I love that they grow sort of slowly and then very fast. So once they start to sort of form the caps, within a week they almost double every day until they're ready to be picked.
And you've got some wicking beds. Now these look vaguely familiar.
Yeah. So we actually got the idea from Gardening Australia and yourself, Sophie. We didn't believe that you could build a raised garden bed that you only water once a week in Adelaide. And yeah, doing research and yeah, here they are.
They're amazing, aren't they? Now, I noticed these are higher. Have you built them higher for a specific reason?
Yeah, so we put a plastic pallet underneath it so that we could get a pallet jack underneath and move. Because I wasn't really quite sure whether the sun would be hitting them in winter or not.
Okay. And have you had to move their position?
Nah, it's been millimetre perfect, so spot on.
We have so much produce, but we did have the issue of overcrowding in a couple of the beds. We planted way too many tomatoes last year.
Over-enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed that these are worm wicking beds.
Yeah. So we created them using an aquaponics pot as well as a normal pot with some holes drilled into the side of it to allow the worms to come and go freely. And then we used the lid, which is just a potting tray with some mulch mat on top.
It works really well. We use all of our kitchen scraps. They go straight into the wicking bed.
Fabulous, and I can see the worms in there happy.
Yeah, there's lots of worms.
I think they want to be covered up, actually. This is a great concept. I love what you've done. I think I might even copy it.
Thank you.
This garden is a labour of love. enjoyed by Hannah, Branko and new baby Vinny. And they've shown just what can be achieved in 2 short years.
We have the trifecta of a creative space, a love of colour and an abundance of food.
You can't ask for much more than that.
At this time of year, it's easy to be taken in by all the flashy colour everywhere. But when all is said and done, it's the evergreen plants that are the real workhorses in the garden, keeping everything looking green and lush across the whole year. Millie's here to share with us some of her favourites.
If I said the word evergreen plant to you, what would you think of? Clipped buxus balls, maybe a few camellias, and a ubiquitous Pittosporum hedge? Well, the truth is that's where my mind goes too. But evergreens are as diverse as any other group, and I think they're really underrated. So it's time to take a fresh look. Now, whether you're gardening intentionally for wildlife or not, your garden does play a role in that bigger picture. And for me, it's one of the main reasons that I'm trying to increase the evergreens in my own garden. In my cool climate, there's such a dominance of deciduous plants that in winter, when so many birds and animals are actually looking to make nests and find a home, there's very little cover. But leaves can slow wind, it can offer privacy and shelter, and it is such a great asset for the wildlife as well as you. But the best way to find those plants is to visit some local gardens or hit your local nursery. Everyone knows the deciduous magnolias. They are sublime plants, but there are also lots of varieties that are evergreen. Mostly they're cultivars of this one, which is Magnolia grandiflora, which comes from southern North America, places like Florida and Texas, and they are ginormous trees. But here, lots of these cultivars are designed for smaller gardens. This is a plant that is now known as a magnolia, but it was in the Michelia genus. They've been moved across. And one of the wonderful things about many of the Michelias is they'll actually produce these gorgeous flowers down on older wood, which means you can grow them as a small tree, but you can also clip them regularly to form a hedge, and you won't lose your flowers. But evergreens aren't just ornamental. There's loads of fruit that you can also grow. Citrus is such an obvious choice for so many gardens. They're really handsome evergreen plants. You've got this great diversity within the group, tight, compact foliage of things like kumquats through to that gorgeous new growth that you get on many of the varieties. But it's not just the leaves that count. They produce a beautiful, fragrant blossom, and if you're lucky, you'll also get a bumper crop of fruit. This is a macadamia, the Australian nut tree, and it is actually related to many of our Australian proteaceae, grevilleas and hakeas, those sorts of plants. And the flower is not unlike a lovely grevillea flower. And then if you're lucky, you'll get a really nice crop of nuts. It's actually tougher than you think and will handle many positions in a frost-free climate. But if you're in a really tough climate like mine,
you can't go past the humble feijoa. They will grow almost anywhere. They're a fantastic shrub or hedge, but being a member of the Myrtaceae family, if you let them grow into a small tree, you actually also get this fantastic speckled bark. This is such an underrated tree from north coast of Australia. It's Eleocarpus humundii, otherwise known as the Umundi quandong, and that gives you a clue as to where it's from. Now up there it can be quite large and tall rainforest tree, but in cooler climates it is a bit more restricted. It has this wonderful, narrow, upright growth habit, fantastic foliage and a beautiful little fringe flower. But I think one of the best things about this tree is the new growth, which when it bursts out has this incredible contrasting brown and coppery tone. A good maintenance tip is to lift the canopy of your evergreen trees as they mature. This will allow the lower angle winter sun to filter through to the plantings below. This can increase the range of species you can grow, as well as the number of flowers and fruit they'll produce. Most Australian natives are also evergreen, which includes more than 800 species of eucalypt. Although many of these are quite big, there are lots of cultivars perfect for smaller gardens. But Australian natives are not just evergreen, they come in all kinds of colours. Things like this, ever burgundy. It's a great form of leptospermum. It's a fantastic shrub or hedge or even small tree. The Albany woolly bush, ever grey. This is a great little shrub in a really well-drained soil. Now, I know tropical climate gardeners have got lush absolutely cornered, but for those of us gardening in a temperate, cool climate, I think when you're laying out a new planting, you want to include about 50% minimum evergreen plants, and that's at every different level. And then, of course, once you find those ones that work so well for you, then repeat them through the planting. It'll really ground all of those seasonal displays. There's loads of species that will do it. Heucheras, this fantastic ligularia. As it gets bigger, you can divide it up. And, of course, one of the most reliable evergreen plants there is, Dianella. So the first thing I like to do when I'm going to divide up a plant like this is actually soak it in a bucket of water. So I let it soak right until all the air bubbles stop coming out, and that just really helps it from going into any shock when I'm a bit rough on it. I'll tip it out. Use that water now to wash away the soil and the root system and see those growing points much more clearly. So now you see the way this plant is growing. You can see it has this rhizome grows out from the main plant and shoots up and spreads out. It means it'll form a clump quite quickly, but it also means you can get lots of plants out of one pot. You can just use some scissors or a sharp pair of secateurs to carefully cut them away. So you can divide it into 3 or 4 large lumps or keep going and make lots of little plants. Then you just pot them up. I just put quite a small amount of potting mix in the bottom of a tube because often the roots, even when you're pricking out little seedlings, are much larger than you think. And if you just carefully hold them, I often do it just with a couple of fingers and then backfill around. And from a single pot, in a few months as these recover, you can have dozens of plants. I don't know any gardener who doesn't want more plants. And increasing the evergreens in your garden has so many benefits. It increases that visual interest. It's there all year round. But it also offers beautiful shelter and cover for you and all of the visitors that stop by. So get planting.
Now, you don't have to just live near the beach to have sandy soils. Sandy soils are found right across this beautiful country. Now, a lot of these natives around me, they've adapted to these conditions. Free draining, sandy soil. There is a little bit of nutrient in there, but not a lot. Now, if you have sandy soils, you don't have to be limited to what you can grow in your own garden. Now, one of the easiest ways to bulk up your sandy soil is add a thicker soil or some composted material. So get some potting mix, soil, or worm castings, get them in there. If you want, grab some reasonably fine mulch. Can be thicker, it'll just take longer to break down. And mix it all together to give yourself a nice organic mix. Another way to achieve this is to grow a manure crop like sorghum or lucerne. Once it's got to where it needs to, chop it down, hoe it back into the soil, and it will really build your soil profile and give you a much broader range of things that you can plant and grow.
Something I love about gardening is it's so diverse. There's so many different ways to get growing. Tammy's got a story that looks below the surface at a unique way to build beautiful landscapes.
As gardeners, we all create and shape a small part of the natural world depending on our taste in plants and design. Today, I'm going one step further and dipping my toes into underwater botanical kingdom here in Lidcombe to the west of Sydney. Welcome to the amazing world of aquascaping. By day, Kevin Twang is an architect on large-scale commercial projects. But in his spare time, he makes and creates finely engineered natural ecosystems. He's known as a scaper, recently winning the country's biggest aquascaping competition.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Please, come in.
Thank you. Congratulations on your recent win.
Thank you so much.
What was the challenge?
So the challenge was to create and design a tank within 5 hours, and everyone shared a set of hardscape materials like rock and wood and some plants, and by the end of 5 hours we would get judged.
Did you expect to do so well?
No, to be honest, I was definitely very surprised, but very happy.
And how long have you been designing and creating tanks for?
About 3 years.
So I have to ask the obvious question, are you a gardener?
I'd say I have more interest in underwater aquatic plants. Plants are the most fundamental things within the tank. It does a lot of the filtration, it balances out the tank, it stops the tank from getting too much algae, and it adds oxygen to the water. So yeah, if you have happy plants, you'll have happy fish.
So looking around, I can see different styles. Are there specific types of aquascapes?
Yes, got nature aquarium style, riverbed style, pond style, and then we've got the iwagumi style.
Iwagumi, what is that?
Iwagumi is a Japanese term. It means rock layout. So basically it's a tank where we only use rocks as the hardscape.
This lush carpet you have here looks like a perfectly manicured lawn. What is it?
So this is a plant called Utricularia graminifolia. We'll just call it UG. And it's a carpeting plant, so it grows quite low and dense, but also it's a carnivorous plant.
And what does it eat?
Basically, it eats microorganisms within the water, but also it has roots that pick up nutrients from below.
And what is it growing on?
It's growing on a substrate. And basically, it is soil that's baked into these balls so that when we put it in water, it doesn't just dissolve.
So the school of fish here, do they serve a purpose in this tank?
So these ember tetras, they are basically the showpiece of the tank. They bring everything to life, and they bring a level of dynamic to the tank with them swimming around. You've got the really bold and hard rocks that stay still, and then the fish that bring the flow in the tank.
The Iwagumi tank is quite simplistic in nature, and then you've got this pond style, which is wild and free-flowing.
Yes, so with the pond style, we use a lot of different species of different plants to mix the textures together. So it's a combination of underwater aquatic plants and even marginal plants. So we have a lot of like epiphyte plants, Anubias, Java ferns, and then when we get above the water, we start to have marginal plants like Japanese bloodgrass, or even aquatic plants that grow immersed in a different way, like rotalas.
Kevin, this is amazing, but it also looks like a lot of work.
Yes, this one is definitely by far the one that took the longest to build. It took about 1 to 2 months from start to finish. When I say finish, it's just finished the planting. And then from then onwards, it was a lot of maintenance to kind of keep it this clean and lush.
And what is this style called?
So this is, you could call it like a river style. And it basically looks, it's almost like I've extracted a portion of the river and we've got a nice sandy bed and then plants kind of creeping up towards the surface of the water. A big part of this was to make it look as natural as possible. So we're blending a lot of different plant species together and we're looking at a lot of different layers that kind of keep your eye intrigued all the time.
And what type of plants have you got growing in here?
So this big kind of green, lush carpeting is called Monte Carlo. And then we've got other species of Eleocharis, which is the grassy plant at the back. We've got a lot of epiphyte plants as well, so Bucephalandra, Anubias. There's heaps of different species in here.
And I can see you've got a variety of fish and the shrimp are working away in here.
Yeah, we've got the green neon tetras, those are the blue-looking ones. And then we've got the Darwin algae-eating shrimp, and then there's also the Otocinclus. And they are basically the core of the cleanup crew. They have these little suckers on their mouths, and they roam around sucking algae off the tank glass or even driftwood and rocks.
So there's the fish and also the plants that help maintain the tank, but there are other elements too.
Yes, so we've got the filter to break down the bacterias. We have CO2 to provide food to the plants. And then we have a light for photosynthesis, and then a heater to regulate the temperature.
Now, I know there's a lot of layers that we can't see that make up this tank, but I can see that you've got one that you're sort of building over there.
Yeah, so usually we call this the hardscape, and it's like the backbone of the whole aquascape. When I start, I first lay down a bit of soil down at the back, and that gives you a good bedding to start putting all the rocks and the driftwood on top. And then the sand in the front.
And what type of plants will you be using?
We'll be using a variety of different epiphyte plants, so they attach themselves to the wood and the rock. We'll have some grasses, some Bucephalandra, some Anubias, and then some Amazon swords that kind of stick out.
I'm used to seeing gardens on a much grander scale, yet you've captured the essence of nature in these tanks, and there's so many different styles. And you've only been at this a short time, but you've really immersed yourself in this landscape. What do you get out of this?
For me, personally, it's a deep connection to nature. I also see aquascaping as an art form. So this is like a blank canvas when I buy the tank, and then when I'm starting to populate it with wood and rock, I'm kind of painting over the canvas. And then the best part is when I'm planting, I find it really beautiful to see Mother Nature take over the artwork and then put Mother Nature's spin on it.
Actions speak louder than words, so now's your chance to make a statement. It's your jobs for the weekend, coming up fast. In cool areas, plum fruits can weigh down branches, which might snap and spoil the harvest. Thin fruits down to only 2 plums every 10 centimetres. Now that Daphne blooms are done, feed with slow-release fertiliser pellets and a helping of iron chelates as a foliar spray to improve its overall health. Quinoa loves the cool evenings, so broadcast seed now into rich aerated soil. You'll only need a couple of plants for a decent harvest, so thin down to 50 centimetre spacing. In warm areas, irises are in bloom with a wonderful range of colours and cultivars. Gently twist off dried up flower heads as new buds appear along the stalk. Don't let a prickly lawn punish your toes. Start lifting bindi weeds, roots and all, while seed heads are still soft to avoid a summer sting. Keep an eye out for leaf miner and gall wasps burrowing into your citrus. Trim off damaged growth, expose gall eggs with a vegetable peeler and spray with eco oil. Soft-neck garlic bulbs are ready to harvest when leaves are yellowing and they start to lean over. Allow to cure for 2 weeks for better flavour and storage. Tahini sauce, anyone? Sprinkle sesame seed in a sunny spot 2 centimetres deep with a little water. This quick dry crop will germinate in 4 days and be ready to harvest in around 3 months. Shrimp plants put on quite a show and are ready for a good drink now. They can get top heavy, so snip off dead branches regularly to keep them ship-shape. In tropical areas, rainfall breaks down organic matter quickly, so replenish the nutrients with fertiliser every other week. Mulch well to soften the impact and keep soil in place. It's the perfect time to get seedlings started. Protect them from downpours with a simple shelter hooked up to a tank irrigation so you can control the water flow. Plant heliconias now so they get a big boost from the rain. Rhizomes will soak up wet spots and the dramatic bracts can be used in flower arrangements. In arid areas, collect kangaroo paw blooms to use in floral displays and encourage more growth. Wear gloves and glasses to avoid touching the irritating hairs on flowers and stems. Boost the nutrient holding capacity for hungry corn by mixing biochar and worm castings in a bucket of water. Pour into trenches, then plant corn kernels adjacent in rows. Pepper flower is a low-growing pollinator plant that flowers profusely through the warmer months. Tip prune now to enjoy their continual blooms. Once you've done all that, keep the garden inspo pumping by watching more of our stories on ABC iView and our YouTube channel. And November is Urban Agriculture Month, with a forum and activities going on all around the country. Check out our website for all the details. Happy gardening, everyone. Here's what we've got for you next week.
I'm meeting the masterminds behind a wonderfully well-designed plant-filled paradise on a steeply stepped site.
If you've ever thought about growing herbs and leafy greens hydroponically in your backyard, I'm visiting a nursery owner who's doing just that. I can't wait to share some of her secrets with you.
And we meet a guide bringing peace and connection through the practice of forest bathing.
Everything is moving and flowing in nature.